Buongiorno and welcome to another edition of Meet Your Neighbor. My name is Ron Falconi. I live here in the city of Brunswick with my family in the Fairways subdivision. And I had this idea back in the fall of 2006 to invite some of local politicians, local business people, and your neighbors to come down to the studio so that all of you could meet them. We have a very special guest today. I'm not even sure if he even needs any introduction. He is a councilman at large here in the city of Brunswick, and I'm honored to sit next to him on city council. His name is Pat McNamara. Councilman McNamara, welcome to the studio today.
Good day, Ron. How are you?
Good. How are you today, sir?
Very good. Thank you.
Pat, can you tell us something about yourself?
Okay. I am a second-generation Irish American. All four of my grandparents immigrated to this country in the early 1900s, between 1919 and 1920.
Wow.
During Cleveland's heyday of industrial expansion. They settled on the near west side down at the old Angle, where all the Irish immigrants were. I am the third of 7 children.
Wow.
My mother and father have 29 grandchildren.
Wow.
So there you have it.
Hey, Pat, where in Brunswick do you live?
I live on the north side of the city in Forest Hills.
In the Forest Hills?
Yep, on Claremont Drive.
Okay.
My mother and father built that house back in 1971 and moved the family from the west side of Cleveland to Forest Hills.
Okay.
When my father retired in 1992, he offered the house to all the children, and I was the only one who took him up on the offer. So we moved in Christmas Eve 1992.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
And how long have you guys lived there?
Well, it's, let's see, what is this, 2009? About 17 years. 17
years now.
Yep.
Pat, are you married? Do you have any kids?
I've been married to my lovely wife, Trish, since 1985.
Okay.
We have 4 children. Okay. Sean is our oldest boy, Katie, Lindsay, and Christopher.
Okay.
The 3 younger ones are in college now. Sean is off in the working world. He works at CSX.
Okay. Oh, right now on the screen, you have a picture of your family, but you said your oldest son is not there?
Right. Sean Patrick is not there. The one directly next to me is Christopher Michael. He is a baseball coach at the University of Akron. He's in his sophomore year at Akron U.
Okay.
Katie Rose is a super senior at Kent State, majoring in communications.
Okay.
Mother Tricia. And Lindsay is a graduate of Miami University, working towards her licensure for teaching early education down in the Cincinnati area.
Oh, that's great.
Yep, I'm very proud of all of them.
Hey, Pat, how long have you been a councilman?
I ran in November and was elected in November of 2005, and was sworn into office January of 2006.
Okay. And for some of my previous guests on the show, I've had a juvenile court magistrate, a county commissioner, and when I was talking to them, I asked them what kind of jobs that they do. I was wondering, can you describe and tell people who are watching in Brunswick, what is a councilman at large and what does a councilman at large do?
Well, at large technically means the entire scope of the city, rather than the subset being the ward councilman, the 4 wards, the geographic boundaries that define a ward. Those councilmen are specifically responsible for and responsible to those citizens in that area, whereas the at-large council, as you well know now, are responsible for the entire city. So we take all the global issues into effect rather than just what's happening in Ward 1 or 2 or 3 or 4.
Correct. Councilman, how did you get involved in politics?
Well, when my kids were young, I coached Brunswick youth sports and in CYO at St. Ambrose. And just as an outgrowth from that, I got invited to sit on the Brunswick Financial Advisory Committee for the Brunswick City Schools. And I loved all that give and take with, the school's treasurer, and it led me to some relationships at City Hall. And quite frankly, when Town Center was constructed, as it was being constructed, I was disappointed in some of the outcomes there.
Sure.
So it led me to throw my hat in the ring in the political arena.
That's great. Pat, what council committees are you on?
Currently, I serve on the Building and Building Code Committee.
Okay.
It's kind of, we maintain and examine all the building codes for the residents in the city.
Sure.
See what makes sense, see what needs updating. Also, I serve with you on the Planning and Zoning Committee, which is a very, very important committee. It's
yes.
Tasked with planning and the zoning codes for land use for the city. I'm also chairman of economic development.
Wow. No, that's a very important committee. Are there any big things that the committee is working on right now?
Well, I consider economic development one of the most important committees personally. Not everyone will agree with me on that, but it's charged with spurring economic development throughout the city. And
sure.
As you know, our tax base depends on, our service provision depends on increased taxes through commercial base and the residents' property tax as well as the income taxes here. So
yes.
The more commercial base that we can establish, good long-term sustainable jobs, it reduces the burden on our residents, so it reduces their taxes.
Sure. Pat, what do you feel is your biggest accomplishment over the past 4 years here on City Council?
Wow, that's a pretty tough question. Getting the numerous road projects started, funded through OPWC, tasking the city engineer with getting the projects engineered, drawn, submitted to ODOT, shovel ready, so that when Ohio Public Works Commission has monies available through the state capital budget, we can obtain those dollars back to the city rather than use our own for out of the general fund. So that's a pretty big accomplishment. But as a personal accomplishment, my late colleague Sue Hambley and I were able to push the city administration to establish the Creative Housing Initiative, the CHIP grant, if you will. And what that does is it's a $500,000 renewable grant from the state capital budget. And it allows people to make repairs to their homes, buy hot water tanks, repair the roof, repair gutters, install new driveways at low, zero-interest loans. And if you stay in the property for a period of 10 years, the loans are forgiven. And it's renewable, so every year you can apply for another one. And it's a way to keep our housing stock in good shape. So I think that's perhaps my proudest accomplishment. But I can't take full credit for that. Sue Hambley had a lot to do with that as well.
Pat, what do you see as some of the important issues facing the city of Brunswick today?
Well, the road issues really remain a top priority. Trying to find a funding stream dedicated to road improvements, reconstruction, and repairs, I think is going to be the biggest challenge over the next couple of years, really.
Okay. Yeah. Pat, I know you're involved with the TID. Can you describe and tell our viewers first of all, what is a TID?
The TID is the Transportation Improvement District.
Okay.
It was set up by Bill Batchelder, by Ohio Revised Code, and what happens is there's only 5 TIDs in the entire state in 88 counties. So I think Butler County, Lucas County, Hamilton County, I can't think of the last one, but what they do is they're charged also with economic development. They seek funding initiatives for not only economic development, but road improvements throughout the county. And the termini of that board is county line to county line. So north, south, east, west, the entire county falls within the parameters. And a couple summers ago, the Medina County Commissioners approached me and asked me would I become a member of that board, and with the council's approval and the mayors of the various cities that I represent. I represent Wadsworth, Medina City, as well as Brunswick City. There's township trustees that represent the townships. There's business owners that represent the business community and the real estate community, as well as the county commissioners, and the county engineer is also involved.
Okay.
And the state capital budget brings money into the TID, and we vote to disperse it throughout the county based on projects that are deemed most worthy.
Okay.
Pretty important responsibility, really.
Pat, as I think most everyone knows that being a councilman is a part-time position. What do you do full-time?
By day, I am a bridge inspector.
Okay.
I inspect all the bridges in the Cuyahoga County region.
Okay.
In 2005, our teams took over the City of Cleveland structure. So all those lift spans and swing bridges and everything that you see downtown Cleveland, we inspect those as well. Anything over 10 feet, as defined by ODOT's laws, we inspect once every year. Okay. So I think we have 400 or 524 structures, mainly bridges, that we inspect every year. And there's 2 teams of 2 men. Oh, wow. So 4 guys do that entire county. The good part of the job is that I get to interact with all the mayors of all these municipalities, from Beechwood to Bay Village, and the councils. We make recommendations for repairs of their structures, because within each municipality, say for instance Brunswick, we have a couple bridges here. We own that. The city owns that, the residents effectively. And as they age, just like your driveway or your home, repairs need to be made to it. Reinvestments need to be made to them. So the inspections are mandated by Ohio law, just like we have to perform it in Brunswick. Okay. And when the inspectors find deficiencies, they have to take it to the legislative body and make recommendations for repair or replacement. So the fun part of it is really interacting with all those agencies.
That's great. So Pat, when you're not inspecting bridges or attending TID meetings or being in city council meetings, what are some of the things that you like to do for fun?
I love to cook, and actually I'm a pretty good cook. Okay. I love to garden. I love growing my own vegetables, and I love flowers. I'm an outdoorsman, so I love to camp. I love riding bikes. Was a motorcyclist till my wife said, we started having children, she said, you got to give up the Harley. I'd like to, I don't know, I love to listen to music. I have a bunch of different interests, but I would say cooking is probably my main passion.
Any particular thing that you like to cook?
I make a mean salsa and a great pot roast.
Oh.
And I think when we did our budget last year, I brought in some
you did the
sticky buns.
I remember that.
For
that
Thanksgiving.
Was good.
So
that was great.
Nice French pastry.
Pat, for just about every guest I had on the show, I always like to play a game of fill in the blank, okay?
Okay.
When I was a child, I blank.
When I was a child, I remember taking a streetcar down to the West Side Market with my grandmother. Okay. On the weekends, my brother and I would sleep over at my grandmother's house, and no one had garages because my grandparents didn't drive cars. They rode the streetcars or the buses, and they shopped every day, which I found odd because they didn't have a refrigerator. They had what was called an ice box, where you put a block of ice in a wooden box in the window. So they bought just enough groceries to last them the day. And as the ice would melt, the water would drip out onto the street. And but the sights and the smells and the sounds of the West Side Market and my grandmother holding my hand as a little boy is something that I'll never forget. Wow,
that's impressive. Pat, the person I admire most is blank.
I read an autobiography of Bobby Kennedy several years ago, and I'm sort of a Kennedy neophyte, and Bobby, more so than his brother John, was really seemed to have gotten the sense of what public service was all about. He felt touched by the disenfranchised, the poor of the nation, and coming from a family of immense wealth, I found that really striking. That he could, that sort of resonated with me. That the sense of public service and the sense of giving back something to the community. So I would say Bobby Kennedy was someone that really I admire and look up to.
Okay. The one place I want to travel to is blank.
I haven't been to the Grand Canyon yet. I want to go to the Grand Canyon and whitewater raft down the Colorado River, camp out under the stars. I've seen pictures of it. It looks beautiful. I've flown over it in an airplane on the way out to the West Coast, but I've never been out there yet. And mainly because during the summer we're either busy with sports when the children were little or on a vacation. So I'll have the opportunity shortly after I retire. My wife and I are planning on going out to the West Coast and by bike, and so we're going to tour the Grand Canyon, not just visit it. We're going to really tour it and really see America in that manner.
That'd be great. Pat, do you have any neighborly advice to people who are watching right now?
Neighborly advice. I'd like to ask our younger drivers in the city to slow down a little bit in the neighborhoods.
Okay.
Too often you see young kids drag racing up and down the street. And in the neighborhoods particularly, it's dangerous. The kids playing kickball and riding their bikes out in the street. So it's, you know, that would be my only advice. And I was one of those children, you know, I can't even tell you how many years ago. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Councilman Pat McNamara, thank you for coming down to the studios
Ron,
today.
it's been my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My name is Ron Falconi. I am the host of Meet Your Neighbor. I just wanted to thank my dear friend and colleague, Councilman Pat McNamara, for coming down to the studios today. I don't think there's anything more profound to be said, so I'm just going to say goodbye and arrivederci.